Yo, what's up, y'all? You feel me? Y'all know what it is, man. It's K Sean. I'm back with another video. Yeah, I got the same fit on. I got the same lay on. It's cool because when I make these videos, I go hard. You hear me? So I make them back to back to back to back to back. You feel me? So get used to it. All right. So in today's video, I want to talk about like how to heal from past trauma. You feel me? Especially when it comes from your intermediate family and not allowing it to interfere with any new relationship or any new experiences in life. You heard me? So let's get straight to it. So look, right? This took me some time to come to, right? This took me some time to understand over time. I'm now 26 years old. You feel me? But you know, luckily I've gotten to the point in life to where I understand it, right? So let's break this shit down. So I'm gonna give y'all, you mean, I'm a breakdown of my life and a breakdown of my own experiences. You mean, like I said, every other video, I'm not a victimized type of mindset type of guy, right? I'm a guy who tries to look at every situation as a whole and I try to break it all down so that I can get a better understanding of what happened, right? So I use my past as teaching tools, right? I use all the things that I've been through as moments of teaching versus moments of regret and moments of disappointment. You understand what I'm saying? And that's a place that I learned to get to over time. You feel me? Because I can't change nothing that happened in the past, but I can use the things that happened in the past to better myself for the future. Right? So I'm cooking. Let's get it. So look, right? I didn't let me get my words together, right? So I wouldn't sit here and say I didn't necessarily have the best childhood. I would say that, right? So, because I feel like by me saying that will be ignorant towards any of the efforts my parents made towards making my life better, right? I don't want to take that away from them because I'm not entitled to for my parents to take care of me. I'm not. I don't give a fuck. You mean if they birthed me, I don't give a fuck about none of that. They're not necessarily entitled to take care of me, even though society, and the social norms that we all, come to an understanding to about having a child and raising a child says to take care of your child and, do the best for your child and things like that. That doesn't mean you're entitled to that, right? That's like saying that I should have the best life for myself. I should have the most money and all the gl- glittery things that life has to offer as if I'm entitled to it, as if somebody should just give it to me. That's not how life works, okay? So, as a kid, the first thing I used to struggle with was like I used to personally feel like I never fit in into, the overall theme or the overall movement of my family, right? And let me break that down, right? I really come from the hood. Like I'm from Kensington of Philadelphia. You understand? Like I was raised there. I wasn't born there. I was born in North Philadelphia, and because I moved around a lot in North Philadelphia, West Philly, South Philly, all that, right? But I spent most of my time and most of my, you know, time of development in Kensington of Philadelphia. If y'all don't know where that's at, go look it up. You feel me? You'll be able to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about today if you just did just a little bit of research about the things that take place in Kensington and Philadelphia. You hear me? So look, so I had two parents. You feel me? No, they never were together while I was developing, as I should say. So as I was getting older, my parents were never together. They were always separate. They had custody. They both had partial custody over us. You feel me? I used to see my dad every other weekend, and then eventually we started seeing him every weekend. And eventually, for me, the out of the three kids that my mom and dad got together, I was the one who wound up living with my dad as I got to my teenage years later on, right? But in my younger years, I spent most of my time on a day to day basis living with my mom, and living where we was living at throughout all that time, right? So, um, my mom was actually, documented, to have bi type 2 bipolar, right? So, there was a lot of shit that I dealt with that. You feel me? And I don't say that to take anything away from my mom. I think my mom tried her best. You feel me? But I think that we're all still developing as people. You feel me? So I can't sit here and get mad or upset about some of the things I wish to have as a child, or some of the things I felt like would have bettered my future, you know, um, uh, based upon, you know, again, what I feel like I deserve. I feel like my parents gave me the best they had to offer. You feel me? Now, there's just some things that I wouldn't do, and there's just some things that I would do differently when I have my own kids. Of course, you feel me? I feel like that's in any and every situation. You feel me? If we take it out of the, concept of family and things like that, it's just like a business. Like if I looked at a business, I would say, hey, I would do this different in that business to make that business thrive more in this area. You feel me? Doesn't make it wrong or right. No, it's just an own perspective that I would give in order to, give me the results of the outlook that I'm looking for. Right. So let's say that. So one of the things I struggled with was definitely trust, right? Like I struggled a lot with trust, growing up. And I didn't know it at first because everything was so normalized to me that, I thought that this was the way of life, and I thought that this was the way of being, right? So trust, right? So every time I experienced love, with my family, it was always in an exchange transaction, right? I only used to feel like that my family only loved and cared about me if I was doing something for them. I never felt like things were unconditional, because the moment or times where I didn't do those things, I was neglected a lot. And I was pushed to the side, and they was talking shit to me, and all and everything else that follows that, right? So, I always felt like an outsider. You got to understand, I'm a middle child, but I'm the oldest boy. So I'm the first one that my mom, had her first experience with, from a young man turning into a man. And I think that's very difficult for a woman, to know how to navigate, because she's a woman, she's not a man. So luckily I had my dad in my life to, set a good foundation for me for what is required of a man, and some of the things that a man shouldn't do, just watching and observing from his own decisions that he make in life. And again, I love my dad, and even though me and my dad might not be on the same page as of now, I don't think that that's hindrance towards any future building relationship with him. I just think that we're just at a time and place to where we're not on the same page. We're not really cool. You feel me? And I'm an adult now, so it's not something that will be like an issue, because I'm at a place to where in my life to where I provide for myself. So if I eat or if I don't eat, it's totally up to me. If my lights are on or not on, it's totally up to me. If I work a job or don't work a job, it's totally up to me. If I have money or don't have money, it's totally up to me. You get what I'm saying? So, growing up in a household, my mom used to just do certain things, man, that just really used to fuck with me a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like she used to whisper a lot, and I used to hate that shit. Like I want y'all to really understand the feeling, right, of your mom or your loved ones, whispering and talking shit about you, and talking bad about you, when the only thing you ever had in your heart was to see them do good and see them win. Excuse me. My my main driving factor in life was the embetterment of my family, was the embetterment of my loved ones, at least at that time being, right? Even now, being at the age of 26, of course I still want to see my family do good. Of course, if I had the opportunity to change their life for the rest of their lives, I would still do it, regardless of where we stand in the relationship, because I'm grateful that I even had the opportunity to be taken care of in some sense, right? I know a lot of friends and shit who didn't get new sneakers. You mean who didn't get new clothes? You feel me? Or who came home and their mom was on crazy drugs, you know what I mean? And they find their way in the streets, and their life took a toll for whatever it was, but it was circumstantial as well as it was situational. You feel me? And I'm blessed that I didn't have to deal with those things. I at least had two parents. Like I knew who my dad was. Like I actually lived with my dad. I actually spent time with my dad. You feel me? A lot of my friends don't even know who their dad are. You feel me? So it's a lot of things to be grateful for as I'm explaining the story. But I'm just giving y'all a breakdown of my perspective of what life was growing up. You understand? So everything I ever did was for the betterment of my family. Me wanting to pursue football was me seeing a outcome that will be best for everyone. Me going hard in football, me carrying this mindset, of being a winner was to just provide. I'm not coming back home, or I'm not taking no step back from an opportunity that would better my family for no one at all. You feel me? For no one. You feel me? So that was always just my mindset about a lot of shit. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I think that my family just didn't know, because I was the first one to really be like that. I think that they weren't used to that. I think that they took my confidence as an insult towards some of the insecurities that they had about themselves in life. You understand? So when I say certain things and did certain things, I was coming from a place of love. I was never coming from a place of condemning. I was never trying to put my family down. If anything, I was expressing my expectation for how I see them in life, right? So I see everyone in this world, at least at a potential what I think their best is, right? And as over time, I understand that I have to evaluate every situation as I see it and as I recognize what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not about more so what I think about you. It's more so what I recognize about what you think about yourself. And still, even with that being said, if I'm able to plant a seed of greatness, towards your mindset, because that's what this life consists of, man. Being successful in anything just requires a mindset to do it. And I'm not talking about the cliche or typical mindset of be great, be good, do good, live life like this, or this and that. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying that as long as you're a striving human being and recognizing your wrongs and being accountable and finding ways to improve yourself is really all that's required. And then most importantly is just being consistent and on that journey. I think that's the hardest part in being consistent. I think that a lot of us have a perspective of life of a black and white area, but in all reality, there's a gray area too. Now let me express that a little bit more. It's more so like black and white will be you either broke or you rich. But then there's the people in between that came from being poor to becoming rich. And that's the area that a lot of people don't talk about because it's not an instant gratification factor that a lot of us can make judgment on. A lot of us only give appraisal or approval when we see somebody get to the point of which that person was striving for, but we didn't understand the journey it took them in between. No, nor did we understand the time it took them to get to the point A to point B. We just assumed everything was instant, and we just assumed maybe that person might have had it, and that's not really how success works. You understand? So with my family, it was just on some like I was always striving to be more. I was always striving to do more, and I always carried that attitude with myself and with everything that I did. And it wasn't really reciprocated. It's like I remember, and quote me on this, you know what I mean? I'm paraphrasing this in the Bible. At least it was something I was referred to in the Bible, as far as like sometimes when you just a shining light, you shine light on the darkness of someone else's life. So if someone's insecure about who they are, within themselves, and you're striving to just be a better person, some people might not reciprocate that equally. Some people might take that as an insult, like you're trying to flex on them or trying to hurt their feelings or their pride by everything that you're trying to do in life, when really everything I'm trying to do in life is for individual growth, an individual standpoint that I understand the collective overall, how much success and how much more I can bring to the situation. But then again, not everybody understands that. You understand what I'm saying? And that within itself is a tough journey to work through. You know what I'm saying? How do you work through the people you love and you care about, but you're striving to be your best beyond past what has been known, but at the same time you creating a distant relationship because you're working towards doing that. So that means that when everybody else wants to do this, you don't want to do this because you're working towards this. So you feel like if you do this, it wouldn't be in alignment towards what you're working towards. But the people that you love and care about want to do this. So now you're not in the unity perspective of you're down. You understand what I'm saying? So now you just deal with neglect and resentment, from your own actions of trying to better yourself, right? So that's pretty much the overall, principle of the things I dealt with, growing up. Like I didn't want to do certain things. I didn't want to be in the streets. I come from the hood. I've seen a lot of bad shit happen. I've seen a lot of my friends get killed. You feel me? I've seen a lot of my friends go from being a cool, collective, humble dude to now they selling drugs, and there's nothing you could tell them, or they're the super duper Goku tough guy, to where the things you guys used to joke about before, now they take it personally and they want to try to make an example, right? Like I dealt with all those things, you feel me, growing up, you understand? So I've seen all those things, and I to me, that was a route I wasn't gonna take. Why? Because I've had proven facts and I've seen through my own eyes the results of those actions. And I said, well, if I do this, if I do what you do, right, then I will be where you're at, right? And I see the path that you're going down, even if you don't see it, or you're neglectful of it or naive of it, then I guess we just don't have a friendship no more. You understand what I'm saying? So that's really just what I feel like life was for me growing up, just across the board. I have other siblings that decide to make different choices in life and actually did fall into, what they felt like was required or believed of us to become and be. These type of kids or these type of men and women that became drug dealers or became superior in the streets or just it's like that wasn't a path I was about to go down. That just wasn't what I was about to follow because I knew what would come with that. But again, I had similars that did go down that route. You feel me? And the results that they had, I know me and them both know that was coming. But some people are cool with their choices and that's okay. I don't look at them any differently. If anything, I just kind of understand because that's a tough journey and not everybody's able to endure that journey of being on your own. Because as I stride towards this journey, becoming more and just establishing myself more, it established independency. It established and it disintegrated any dependence upon anything financial or anything that I felt like my parents could provide for me on that type level because I was willing to go get it on my own. So now once you strip away those let's say those benefits of saying, hey, if you do what I do, if you do what I tell you to do, then I give you this. Once you strip away that leverage, there's no more of that. Now you have to look at me as my own. You have to look at me and who I am as a person. Some people don't feel like they have anything to offer in that area. And I feel like that's the wrong perspective to have. But then again, that's just my opinion because I've never been a parent. I've never been someone who had to raise 4 kids on their own and put food on the table every day and put a house over their head and you may have hot water and all the essential needs of raising a family. I've never been in that position, so I can't speak from that. I can't speak about what I would have did or what I would have done because I'm not in that situation, right? So that's just like common sense. A lot of people in the hood talk about, well, if I was in this, I would have did this, I would have did that, until they're faced with that situation and you really see what they'll really do. You understand what I'm saying? So it's kind of like it's the same thing, man. One thing y'all gonna see from me and one thing y'all gonna learn from me, man, is I'm a big analogy type of guy. I feel like life is full of concepts and things, and concepts just come in different ways, but it's all the same. It's just on the perspective in which you look at them through. So I struggle with love a lot. Like, I felt like I experienced, not I felt, but I experienced love being transactional, like I told y'all before. Coming back from college and really feel like me and my mom really building a great relationship and she telling me she loved me and I'm just so happy for it. To then, find out that, she was stealing from me or find out that, she was opening bank accounts in my name, for her own benefits or maybe for the family benefits, who knows, to then be disappointed, to then kind of feel like I was being manipulated, so I struggle with that a lot in life and establishing longevity in friendships because I was so ready to let go and I was so ready to dismiss anything because I understood the hurt that came with having love for someone and trying to look past something to continue that love with someone. You understand what I'm saying? So I became very, very reactionary towards situations. I became a person who didn't necessarily talk things out because it was easier and quicker for me to let you go. Why talk this out? Why try to figure this out if I felt like you did something wrong to me? You should never did that. You should never did what you did wrong to me. Why do I owe you a conversation? Why do I owe you the benefit of the doubt to get a better understanding of what happened when you did it already? Right? So that was always my mindset, right? So as I've gotten older and over time, I realized my value on life shifted. I realized that everything doesn't have to be an end all be all as long as it's not a life or death situation. It's different if this person's trying to take my life away from me. It's different if this person's becoming a threat towards my health or anything that I got going on to where I can't allow that, around me because I respect my own life. But if someone did something grimy or dirty towards me, again, it's situational for every situation, you know. Then I had to establish boundaries based upon the relationship, based upon the person, based upon exactly what was done, you know. So again, that's something that I just learned over time at the age of 26. You know, it took me 26 years to figure this out, right? I really want to break that down to y'all. It took me 26 years to figure this out. You know what I'm saying? So don't nothing come overnight. You understand? So with that being said, it's like um that allowed me to like look at everyone as an individual for who they are. And I think for real, I need to give more credit to my father upon that. You know, my dad used to always tell me, man, you need to recognize character in people. You mean stop looking at the role that or position someone has in life. You need to look at them for who they are as a person. I remember my dad used to tell me that all the time. And I think he was throwing salt or dirt towards my mom, but he was speaking the real shit. You feel me? So just because that's your mom, whatever it is, if she's doing this to you, acting like this towards you, then you have to look at her as an individual for who she is as a person. That doesn't mean I stop my love for her. That doesn't mean that I don't love my mom. That just means that, like I told y'all before, it's important for me to establish boundaries because I don't want to allow myself to be in a position to be hurt anymore. I don't want to allow myself to be in a position to not love anymore because I have nothing but love for you. But if I don't be affirmative in my boundaries and the allowance I allow you to have towards having an effect on my life, then you will continue to do things, you know. So shout out to my dad for that, you know. And even with my dad, like my dad was a super cool dude growing up. You feel me? Like I love my dad. You feel me? My dad was my hero. You feel my dad was definitely my hero growing up. And like I said, even though we're not on the same page right now, I would never take away from anything he did for me. You mean? Because he really showed me how to be a man. You feel me? My dad cooked for himself, cleaned for himself, went out and hustled and got money. You feel me? And you know what I mean? He did the best that he could and the best that he knew, at least at that time, you know. My dad a real dude, like my dad a real street nigga, you feel me? Like a real street nigga, you feel me? He not, you see my dad, you don't even know that's my dad because we don't even look alike, right? He's a super, super dark-skinned guy with gold teeth, you hear me? So you won't even know that's my pop, but that's my pop, you hear me? And he showed me a lot as a man, you feel me? And I definitely did notice the difference between me and my friends who didn't have a father presence in their life as far as emotional stability. Feel like, yeah, of course, I'm still emotional about shit and shit can bother me, but I process things just a little bit different because I had a father who would, hey, yo, chill out, nigga, sit down. Like, fuck you doing all that crying for, you feel me? I never saw my dad cry in my life, you feel me? Never in my life have I ever saw my dad cry. Never in my life, you feel me? I'm lying, I'm fraud. When my dad got married, for the first time he cried, and we all bust out laughing, you feel me? We all bust out laughing because we never saw that nigga cry before, you feel me? But he definitely shed a tear on that, John. So, you know, I feel, you know, I guess it goes to say that it meant a lot to him, you feel me? But my dad never, like, you mean he might have said his 2 cents about a situation, but he always went about finding the answer. And I feel like that was, you know, instillment into my character for who I am as a man today. Like, I ain't gonna really do too much bitching or complaining. You feel me? We gonna go ahead and figure out an answer. I might need someone to talk to process it and hear myself think. You mean to get a better understanding before I move too quick. And again, my dad showed me that. You feel me? But at the same time, we're not gonna do no crying, no bitching about it. That's just not how it's gonna go. You feel me? Um, and as far as my mom, like my mom is just like someone who I felt like might have, you know, not might have, but you know, dealt with a lot of stuff in her past life, you know, and she's still working through those things to become the woman she truly desires to be, you know. But within that time in between, you know, everybody's affected by her process, you know, and I just think that comes with parenthood, you know. I think that the person that you was when your child was born to the person you are when your child is 5 to the person you are when your child is 10 to 15 or 20 until their adulthood, you know, it's all different versions, you know. So I understand that my younger siblings don't know the version of my parent that I once knew, you know, and I understand my perspective of my parent is not the same perspective that my younger siblings might have. So there might be some disagreement there, you know, and I think that's okay, you know, because I'm not here to, you know, try to convince someone or about what they should think about someone based off my own past experience. You know, that's a journey for themselves and they own. And who knows, you know, maybe my mom or my dad changed. Maybe they learned from who they used to be and became something different to who they are now. Maybe I just wasn't around to see that process because I'm already an adult now. You understand what I'm saying? So, um, I say that to say, as I've gotten older, I just realized, I use the consequences as a teacher. I understand that, hey, it doesn't take anything for someone to harm or kill someone or do anything very malicious to anyone. It doesn't take much to do that. A child can get in possession of a firearm and use it incorrectly and kill someone close to them. You know what I mean? So killing someone and doing all that, the way that society glamorizes it now is inadequate actually, because they're giving too much credit about being in possession of something that's life threatening when a 3-year-old could be in there and misuse it. You understand what I'm saying? So I firmly believe and stand on who I am as a man, that the process of figuring things out over time takes a whole lot more work. Takes a whole lot more work and a whole lot more dedication. You feel me? And a whole lot more consistency towards that path and that journey for yourself. You feel me? And those are the people I have just a little bit more respect for. I don't judge the people who might have made a bad decision in that moment, but all I'm saying is the ones that were able to think themselves through and work past that situation and put down the pride or whatever is fueling their ego, whatever it is in that situation, to see the longevity result, are the ones that I gravitate towards, because that's the direction I'm headed towards in life. Do I make sense here? But even like I said, like in relationship aspect, like, like when I went through it with girlfriends, or friendships, the minute something went south or left, I was never looking to be a friend again. I was never looking to be a boyfriend again. I was never looking to return back to a situation like that. And the problem could have been small, but like I said, I've been so accustomed to a fight or flight or survivalistic mentality that it was only natural for me to say fuck you, because it was easier. Why deal with this, or why deal with anything that is harmful towards me, when I feel like and truly believe I gave this person no reasons to do that in the first place, but they did it, so now it's a fuck you type thing. And again, that's very situational too. You be your own judge upon what you're allowed to have in your life, because like I told y'all, every other video, life is full of preferences. So if you prefer to have someone and allow them to do certain things, hey, that's totally up to you. That's okay. But there's certain things I'm just not cool with, right? So it's just developing over time, man. I really just take a lot of time to reflect, and that's something that I feel like I want to share with y'all, really taking the time to be to yourself and reflect on what happened, right? And reflect on what take place. And I feel like the only way to get through that process is accountability, right? Don't be overly accountable for things either, because I used to be that person too, like everything was my fault, right? I had to look at everyone as an individual and every aspect that I feel like they played a part into a situation, to then look at myself as, what did I do to either be reactionary or to either be preventative about what are the next steps taking place, because no one can make me do nothing I don't want to do, right? I don't care how mad somebody try to make me get or anything like that. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it, right? And I have to have a sense of self-control to not allow that to happen, right? So if I did something, that means I wanted to do it. And maybe I was caught up in the moment and I did those things. And that's something that I can grow and learn from, right? Um, I remember hearing this analogy of saying that, like, if you include someone else in your problem, you'll never figure out the solution. So if I said the reason why this happened was because of you, I'll never figure out an answer, because I can't change who you are as a person. But if I only include myself in a situation, then I can change who I am as a person. You understand? So there's process. There's steps there that will allow me to grow if I decide to take that step. You understand what I'm saying? So um that's something I definitely just wanted to share with y'all, man. Make sure you reflect. Like, make sure you take the time with yourself to reflect on something. You know what I mean? As you go through reflection, you'll start to really identify your direction and where you're going in life. You know what I mean? And you'll start to understand what you allow, what you won't allow in your life because of where you want to go. You'll start to understand who you are as a person. You'll start to understand the things that trigger you, the things that bother you. Even when you take the steps and figure out the things that trigger you, the things that bother you, you're starting to understand, why do they trigger you? Why do they bother you? Because then that's the next step, right? Because once you get control over understanding why things trigger and bother you, then you can solve that issue. Maybe it might be some underlying issue or some past trauma, some past experiences that maybe be, some form of anxiety towards you. I think that people assume anxiety comes in a form of overreactive or very impulsive, and I think that anxiety is anything that feels intensified in your mind, right? So some things might be intensified in my mind, but I'm like this, I'm chilling, but in my mind something else is going on completely different. So now that anxiety has crept in and made me overthink or over react towards a situation when that might not be the case. So that's just a quick video for y'all today. Like I said, I just give y'all more, man. I gave y'all my life, I gave y'all my experiences. You mean I come from a place of love, I come from a place of care. I truthfully want to see everyone win. If I'm gonna be completely transparent, the only way that anyone can win is if they want to win within themselves. I am not God. I am not someone who will come here and wave my finger or touch you on the shoulder, and make you change your life forever. But I'm someone who comes from God and able to plant a seed, that maybe you're able to benefit from to better yourself in your future. And any way that you decide to do that for yourself, you understand? So having this platform and having this opportunity to share those things is just something that I'm going to take advantage of, because it's about what I leave here. It's about the people that I can inspire, the people that I would love to see win in life, that I would love to see and hear the stories about where they was to who they are now. And if I had any effect or influence on that, that's something that I definitely make me sleep better at night, So that's something I'm definitely prideful of and grateful of and, egotistical of. However y'all want to word it, I really don't give a fuck. But in all reality, it's to help you win and see you be successful. So this is to another video, man. I appreciate y'all, man. I don't ask much, but if you guys appreciate these videos, really liking these videos, hearing what I had to say, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If I'm able to do this more and more and more, then I'm able to offer more and more and more. And, hopefully you guys benefit from everything that I talk about. But I'm a nigga just like you, bro. I work a 9 to 5 right now. You hear me? But this is a direction I can take my life into. Just give, be supportive, me, and really be all in and seeing y'all win. Then, do me a favor. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe in all my videos. But you mean to the next video, man. Y'all know who it is, man. My name is Keyshawn. You hear me? Remember that. You feel me? Y'all have a good one.